Hey everyone, welcome back to D&J's Epic Quest. I am Justorian, and this is
Dereker, how are you doing tonight, sir?
doing okay. It's hot as balls outside, man. It's like 92 degrees or some shit. Some shit.
Yeah, it's warmed up, and tomorrow it's gonna cool. At least down here, it's gonna cool off. Or maybe that's Saturday.
Yeah, I
We're
think it's
supposed
supposed
to
to
have like a.
snow. Yeah.
Oh shit, I didn't know that. But yeah, we're gonna have like a 30-degree temperature swing Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Yep. This is what Minnesota does. But apparently we broke records the other day, yesterday. Hotter March or April 12th than it has been in years. So
Interesting.
yeah, it wasn't too bad. I've been like really looking forward to the warmer weather because I hate winter. I'm not very active in winter, and we just moved to this area which there's lots of lakes and trails around us. So all last week, Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday, I went for walks with the girls, my kids, and
Nice.
just kind of like explored some of the trails around here and just seeing where they all connect to. And yeah,
Sounds nice, man.
yeah, I'd like to get back into running, but my knees just fucking kill every time I do it.
You know, I've been wanting to also, and more just like I fucking hate running. I hate it so bad, but it does feel good like when you like accomplish a goal. Like a few years ago, man, it's been a couple of years, but Kelly and I, we did a half marathon. We did the Mankato half marathon,
Yeah.
and it's kind of funny how it started out because it was New Year's Eve when we decided to do it, and we were pretty drunk, and we're like, let's fucking sign up for it. So we signed up for it, and we're like, oh shit, well now we got to do this. So like, oh, we're gonna train for it, and blah 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 blah. And so we didn't train for it as well as we could, because I think the half is in. I don't remember what it was because it was goofy with COVID because we had to do it virtually. So you had basically they opened up some dates like you can run it on this date through this date, whatever those dates were. I don't remember. Um, you need to have like an app track your run, and then you just submit the time to us, and we'll mail you your shit. So we did it on one of the last possible days, and I think it was in October because there was still snow on the ground, or there was snow on the trail in places. And so I had it in my head I wanted to do it in less than 2.5 hours. I did it in 2 hours and 22 minutes, so I was happy with that. But the longest run we did for training leading up to 13.1 miles was 5 miles. Um, so I just basically showed up and did it. And I felt like shit afterwards, really. I mean, I felt good, but I was like, God, I wish I would have trained better for this.
A
So,
half marathon is 13 miles.
yep, full marathon is 26.2.
Holy shit. That would explain those fucking stickers I see all over the place. Like on the back
Yes.
of cars. I always just thought that was like a radio station of some kind.
No, no, no. I'm
I'm
glad to have
36
brought you
years
this
old, just
revelation.
realizing that those stickers are half marathon and full marathon,
Yep.
like badges.
So yeah, the last summer I was trying to run, and I don't know what because I've got some decent running shoes, and they don't have a ton of miles on them. But I went out running one day. I was gonna shoot for like 8 miles. I was just like, fuck it, I'm gonna go like 8 miles, and I was just about 3 miles. So we ran from on the Red Jacket Trail by the YMCA in Mankato.
Yep.
Um, and so I got out to about Highway 90 by Mount Cato there. I was just short of that, and I got a cramp in my calf.
Oh God.
Like, well, fuck. Now I gotta, I pushed through. I had like 100 yards to get 3 miles on. Like, I pushed through, which was probably dumb. And then I turned around and walked back, limped back. But it took like 2 or 3 days for this cramp to go away. And then like a week later, I tried running again, and I got about a mile, and the same thing happened, and I just stopped then. So I don't know. It started in like my Achilles and then worked its way up. So I don't know. I haven't tried running since then. Playing hockey, skating, fine. I have no problems. Just running. So I don't know.
Yeah. See, I have to like work up to it. I have to like jog for a minute and then walk for like 2 minutes and then jog for another minute and then walk for 2 minutes and just kind of like alternate. And even after that, my knees just fucking hate me. So I'm sure it's just the length of time that I haven't been that active, and it's just I give up so easily because it takes like a week for my knees to heal. So yeah, being an ex-smoker doesn't fucking help either.
That's Kelly uses an app. It kind of does that. Yeah, she runs for like a minute and then walks for a minute or whatever the time is, and she likes that. I'm not that type of person. I'm just gonna go out and just go do it. Like that's just how I am. So
No, I
we're a
mean
little different there. So
I wish I could just go out and do it, but my body just won't let me, you know? And if I push myself, I'm afraid I'm gonna like really hurt myself. So I just play the conservative route.
I would like to do a half at like and have the real experience because I think with that I'd probably do better than my time the first time because there were some other people just out jogging on the trail when we did ours and we had our little like number plate things.
Yeah,
I don't know what they're called, and so they're like, oh, and they'd give us a little woohoo as we went by and stuff. So that was cool. So I couldn't imagine having like, people really cheering for you, along the way. I think that would be a big boost. So
makes sense.
we'll
Well,
see.
cool. I guess how are you? Did we do that already?
We kind of had our running talk. So
Well, I guess it's good to be back. I like that there's a normal cadence again. Yeah. I don't know. What do you say? Should we thank our patrons and get her into it?
yes, definitely. Would you like to do that this time?
Yeah,
I feel like I
absolutely.
normally do it, which is one of us just has to do it. It don't matter which one, but I feel like I've done it most of the time. So yeah, we'll pass
Yeah,
the
no,
baton to you.
all right. Sounds good. Well, as far as our Patreons, Jan, the picker of pies. I have a feeling I'm going to get two. Luciana, thank you. And then Ryan, the topological. Thank you so much for contributing to our Patreon and to our show and for all the support that you give us. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys. We definitely do appreciate it. There is one thing I wanted to just mention quick before we get started. I was going to do this last week and I kind of forgot about it, but you had mentioned to me a week or two back that we got a 3-star review on, I think it was Apple, which is cool. Like, thank you for the rating. I'm not going to be like upset that it's 3 stars. The only thing I would ask, give us some sort of comment.
Or shoot us an email. Like, we'd love to hear what it was that was dissatisfactory, or maybe not dissatisfactory, but just kind of like to you. Just so that we can offer an explanation or, whatever the case is.
Or we can, I mean, it's something we can learn from, take it as feedback and try to be better. So I don't think, I mean, I'm not upset about it. I appreciate the honest review rating. So
Absolutely.
just maybe some words to help us along and improve on things. So
Absolutely. 100%. We're all about trying to be better. I think at this point it's weird to recognize us as podcasters, at least for me it is. But it was only a year ago that we started this, so we've learned a lot in that year about podcasting and making this type of content, and I can only imagine where we'll be in the next year. So, but we really wouldn't have been able to do that without the constructive criticism that we have had. So
for sure.
I thought it was really funny. I don't know if you've been keeping up with the YouTube comments, but there is a person that has been commenting quite a bit, and I'm really enjoying what they have to say. I'm trying to remember their user tag here.
I typically don't look at those unless you send them to me. So no, I haven't kept up on them. I do get curious if there's comments, and sometimes I ask it. I haven't in a while.
It is my own Genesis. They are. I guess I don't know if they are male or female. But they have been commenting on quite a bit of our Gardens of the Moon videos, which is funny because I don't remember half the things that they're bringing up, which is, I guess, sad on my part on the conversations that we had. But it's all good stuff. And in one of the comments on one of the episodes, they pointed out what I quote, my nightmarishly stumbling of words. What exactly that was, uh, I don't recall at this point, but it just kind of goes back to my point that it's interesting to see where we've come and how far we've come, and I hope I'm not nightmarishly stumbling anymore. But like, if it provides entertainment, I'm all down.
Yeah, I'm sure we've both have done that. It's, I mean, we're staring at a computer screen, reading what we wrote, and yeah, those things happen. So,
Right. But my own Genesis, thank you very much for your interactivity. I'm really enjoying reading your comments and just I don't know, bullshitting's not the right word, but interacting with you in a friendly, funny manner.
there you go.
So, but yeah, what do you say? Should we get into it?
Sure. I will say I really like this chapter. It was pretty emotional. Yeah, this epigraph I like a lot. It just kind of gives me chills a little bit, and yeah, it's pretty short and sweet. The goddess drew breath, and all was still. The apocalypse Herulin.
I'm going to add onto that epigraph. So the goddess drew breath, and all was still. Justin's taking a pie, and filling will spill.
That's good. That's good. I think you're taking one, but I'm fairly convinced in my head that you're going to take two.
I guess we'll just have to raffle that one. But yeah, we can talk more about it at the end of the chapter. But for all that are listening, this is our 17th episode of Deadhouse Gates, our chapter 14 summary here. And this is the first section. Malazan glared at Culp as the mage told her that they cannot stay here. Malazan asked why they couldn't. There's water and food here, and out there, the storm would kill them. Culp snapped back that it was because they were being hunted. Hebrick laughed and then raised his invisible hands and began to ramble about being pursued, and other cleverly worded sayings around this concept. Culp looked at the priest and explained that he meant literally, and that they are living shapeshifters inside the city, and their scent rides every wind. Malazan said that they should just give up. Culp says that he's serious. They were in Raraku, home of the whirlwind. There won't be a friendly face within 100 leagues of here. Hebrick adds that those faces aren't even human. Hebrick rambles on about the Soul Taken and Divers and how coincidental it was that the unholy convergence took place during the year of Drijana. Culp tells him that he is a fool if he believes this. Culp explains that he has a hunch that someone started the shapeshifters on this convergence, and that someone acted precisely because of the uprising, or potentially the other way around, and that the whirlwind goddess or the whirlwind guided the prophecy to ensure it was during the year of Drijana, when the convergence was underway, in the interest of creating chaos in the Warrens. Hebrick responds to the mage and said that his notions were interesting, but that would be easy for a practitioner of Minas. Mianas. I'm just going to start saying it like that, Mianas, instead of Minas. Malazan was quiet, observing the old men converse with each other. She thought to herself about how there was a conversation on the surface, yes, but also one beneath. The priest and the mage are playing games, entwining suspicion with knowledge. Hebrick sees a pattern. His plundering of ghostly lives gave him what he needed, and he's telling Culp that the mage himself is closer to that pattern than he might imagine. Malazan kind of snaps out of it and directly tells the ex-priest what he knows. Hebrick simply just shrugs. Culp asked why it mattered, as just moments ago she was suggesting they surrender and let the shapeshifters kill them. Pelazin reminded them that she simply asked why couldn't they stay here as they'd be killed out in the storm. Culp snapped again and yelled at her to stay then, as she had nothing useful to offer. Pelazin blurts out that she heard all it takes is one bite. Culp slowly turned and explained to her that it was common enough ignorance, but a bite did not transform one. Sure, you'd get a sickness, but that didn't mean you became one. Pelazin asks how one was made then. Culp tells her that they are born. Hebrick interrupts by standing up and explaining that they should leave as the voices in his mind have left, and for the moment his mind is clear. So nice little short section there. Pretty, transitional. Can't think of any other better word for it. But there are some, kind of cool little nuggets of information that take place.
Yeah, there was some interesting stuff here. The one thing I guess reading this, I assumed it was all kind of a part of the same thing, but I guess the Path of Hands and the Whirlwind, I guess I didn't really think of them as like two separate events. I don't know if you did or not.
That's how I've always had it in my mind.
That they were two separate ones?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I just kind of thought they were tied together, I guess. That's all.
I think I felt like that at the beginning, but as kind of more information got revealed about it, they seemed like separate things.
Gotcha.
One of the things that I really enjoyed is how the author conveys Hebrick's mentality, because Hebrick is laughing and raising his invisible hands like he's crazy, and he goes on this really cleverly worded sayings around being pursued, and Culp is like, no, we're literally being pursued by shapeshifters inside the cities. I can smell their scent. And I just like how Culp has to stop and like assure Hebrick that he means that they are literally being chased. I think this is a small little part just accentuating where Hebrick's mind really is. Clearly, it seems that he's intrinsically just absorbing memories of the past in whatever environment he's in. And at the end of the section, they seem to have dissipated. So he's clearly hearing a lot of shit, like just, I don't know, white noise, but like distinguishable is kind of how I'm imagining it.
I don't know. I mean, the more we keep getting from Hebrick, I just kind of feel like he's more and more, getting a screw loose. I guess it just seems to get a little bit goofier every time we come across him.
Does get very goofy, and it's kind of funny because Hebrick has gone through quite a bit of transformations in this story so far, and I can't even imagine how he's keeping himself together in the environment that he's been in. Like, it's just onslaught after onslaught after onslaught, and Pelazin is right there, kind of taking her own lumps too. So
yeah, it's everybody's kind of taking a beating along the way in one way or another.
Right. One of the other things that I thought was cool was Hebrick is he, in responding to the mage about like the year of the Dryjana and how Culp is explaining that someone started this and that it was intentional. Hebrick basically says that it would be easier for a practitioner of Mianus. And I really enjoyed what Hebrick said, and I'll reread it here. But Hebrick says, natural, of course, coming from the practitioner of Mianus, where deceit breeds like runaway weeds, and inevitability defines the rules of the game, but only when useful. I feel like this encompasses a lot of Shadow Throne's actions. How specifically, I can't really think of specific examples because I don't really have enough information to prove or disprove. But this statement I felt was meant to go a lot deeper than Culp and how he uses his Warren, which is essentially Shadow Throne's Warren of Illusion, right? I just thought that that was interesting. Like, I feel like Hebrick was making a stab at Shadow Throne in that comment.
I guess I did not think of that, or would not have.
I mean, that's fair. Again, that's just me like thinking way too abstractly about it. Whether that's true or not, it just seems like the ploy with Poost and his crazy antics and Shadow Throne and Apsalar, them possessing her and then using her, and then the possibility of it was planned for her to it was almost planned for Animander Rake to intervene so that she would be freed of possession just to assume the role of Shaik. All of that seems very encompassed to what Hebrick has to say about Culp and his Warren.
Very well said, sir.
And speaking of Felazin, and this is kind of like my last point for this section,
Sure.
and I have a theory for you, Sir Derricker. So in the prologue, she sees Hood's priest with the flies, right?
Yep.
So since then, all she has seen is death and destruction, pain, heartache, etc., right? And I guess this got me thinking about the Final Destination movies for some reason. Not necessarily the story, but just the way that those movies captured the presence of death. And I'm relating that ominous feeling to what Felazin may be feeling and why she's so insistent to just give up and die. And I think all of these moments are small pieces of foreshadowing that eventually lead up to her death. She has accepted death and will continue to get more and more comfortable with it, is, I guess, kind of where my headspace was going at. So in the prologue, when the priest of Hood confronts Hebrick and like the flies disperse all over him or whatever, and she hears that priest of Hood say something, I feel like the priest, even though they were like confronting Hebrick, was really meant and was there for Felazin. I feel like that is the beginning of the foreshadowing.
I like it. That's really interesting. I like that.
So, yeah. But outside of that, I didn't really have anything else for this section. Again, they are making their way from this underground city and finding an exit point.
Well, you ready for me to continue on then?
Take her away.
All right. I will just say that a lot of this, what I typed here, was word for word from the book. Usually I try to, summarize things up in my own way, but I just really found that difficult on this section. So the group drank from the pool one last time and grabbed as many of the pale fruits as they could. Felsen thought that she felt better, healthier, more mended than she had in a long time. It was as though her memories no longer bled and she was left with only scars. On the inside, she felt as if she had run out of hope. Hebrick led them through the streets. They were filled with scenes of battle. Bodies lay everywhere. Human, shapeshifter, and Talanimus. Hebrick's knowledge of what had taken place stuck with Felsen. Each new scene of terror resonated with her. She felt she was on the cusp of realizing a profound truth, she thought. We do not but scratch the world, frail and fraught. Every vast drama of civilizations, of peoples with their certainties and gestures, means nothing, affects nothing. Life crawls on, ever on. She wondered at the revelation, discovering the meaning of underlying humanity offered nothing more than a devastating sense of futility. She continued thinking, it is the ignorant who find a cause and cling to it, for within that illusion of significance, faith, king, queen, or emperor, or vengeance, all bastions of fools. Felsen had guessed it had been roughly an hour before Hebrick stopped. They stood at the foot of some sort of grand temple. Culp's magical light cast the scene in an eerie light. Hebrick was smiling. Culp said what they were looking at was a deck. Hebrick said it was an elder deck. Not houses, but holds. Realms. Could he tell the difference between light and dark, life and death? Could they see the hold of the beast? Who sits upon the antlered throne? He said, speaking to Culp. Culp said it was empty, assuming he was looking at the one Heberick was talking about, but there were creatures in the frames, and it was flanked by Talan Imus. Heberick said it was odd there was no one on the throne. Culp asked why. Heberick told him that every memory he could recollect said that there used to be someone on there. Culp said it had not been defaced or defiled. It looks weather-worn everywhere. Here, Heberick said there should be the unaligned. Could they be detected? Culp said maybe they were on the backside. Heberick said it was all possible. Among them, he should see the shapeshifter as well. Fellison barged in, saying this is all really fascinating for some fucking nerds, and she assumes they're entering this place since that's where the wind goes. Heberick said yes, and the far end will provide the exit. Once they got inside, it was basically just a tunnel. Everywhere was packed with sand. The further in they went, the louder the wind got. Further ahead, they could see a pale light. They exited the tunnel, Culp, Fellison, then Heberick. They were on a ledge. The mouth of the cave was high on a cliff. The wind howled so fiercely as if to toss them into the air. The bottom lay some 200 arm spans below. The view took away Fellison's breath. The whirlwind raged, not before them, but below, filling the basin that was the holy desert. Fellison looked on and laughed. She said all they needed was wings. Heberick said he'd become useful again. Culp asked what the hell he meant. Heberick told them both to tie themselves to his back. He's got a pair of hands and he means to use them. Culp asked if he was crazy, climbing down rotten rock. Heberick asked what choice they had. Fellison said she was fine waiting. Reluctantly, Culp agreed, but said he would keep his warren open. They'd fall the same distance, but hopefully the landing would be a little bit softer. Probably not much difference, but hopefully it gives them a chance. Heberick said he had no faith as he tried to stifle his laughter. Fellison wondered how far they would need to be pushed. They were not slipping into madness. They were being pushed and pulled into it. She felt pressure on her shoulder. It was Heberick, placing an invisible hand. Though she couldn't see the hand, the fabric of her shirt compressed. He leaned in and told her, Rarku reshapes all who come to it. This is one truth you can cling to. What you were falls away. What you become is something different. Rarku's gifts are harsh. It's true. Culp told him their straps were rotting. Heberick only told him to hold on tighter. He said this was madness. Fellison thought those were her words. Heberick said they were welcome to wait for the soul taken and divers. Pretty interesting chapter section of the chapter. What did you think?
I find the holds interesting, and I know that we got a little bit of an introduction to them as basically kind of like ancient like decks of the dragon, so to speak. And that was when Fiddler and Mappo were conversing in Iskarel's, whose temple, essentially. And I think it's interesting that the shapeshifter hold was like empty. The throne was empty or whatever. Oh yeah, the hold for the beast, right? So here's my theory, right? Is from what I understand about that visual representation is there's a throne. There's creatures flanking the throne, and then flanking the creatures are Talani Mass. Well, we know from, I think 2 chapters ago, or even, 2 chapters ago, the Talan and shapeshifters have some type of bond together. Like they're related in some way, shape, or form. So I think that this hold is supposed to represent maybe even the gatekeeper for the Path of Hands, or potentially the ascendant that controls the shapeshifters. And I think that's why it's missing, is because that hasn't been revealed yet.
I almost kind of had a like it says it's like he doesn't see anything there. So it made me think of Harry Potter and the pictures that they like the people in them move.
Oh yeah,
um,
yeah.
that was just kind of the thought I had. So,
Hmm.
um, but I like your thoughts a lot. I think that's interesting.
So I almost kind of feel like I said, I just get this like weird feeling that the hounds have something to have something to do with this. Like maybe they were what ascended prior. Because it kind of seems like the Path of Hands has happened before,
I'm sure it has.
and I know that their whole worry is that basically a shapeshifter to control all shapeshifters. So I feel like it's already in the realm of possibility. We just haven't been introduced to it yet. And maybe they're looking for another. I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, I feel like it definitely has something to do with something in the past, and maybe that, ruler of the shapeshifters was killed or switched sides, or, the realm of possibilities is wide open. Um, and so therefore the Path of Hands is happening again. But, in the previous section, I do agree with Culp that it's definitely intentional. But again, how does one intentionally, it's like calling up a big party and everybody has to come. Like, how do you make that happen?
Logistics.
Exactly. So that's my guess. I'm probably dead wrong, but you know, just from the pieces that I have, which don't have a lot of context to them, that's I guess what I'm spitting at.
Gotcha. Well, hey, we can run with it.
Yeah.
So, you remember? I don't remember. It was 1 or 2 episodes ago, but I thought we were going to see a change in Fellison,
Yeah.
where she wasn't going to be like as nasty, and I think that's kind of paying off because she says she has this thought that she's feeling healthier and more mended than she had in a long time. And she doesn't have these memories. She's still got the trauma, of those memories and everything, but or the scars as she thinks. But she hasn't been. She's might have been a little like smart ass-ish to people, but she's not been outright nasty to anybody. So I think that's kind of coming true a little bit. And I wonder if that doesn't relate to, the gift of Raraku. It changes who you are. But she still holds on to it a little bit. This, her self thought, we do not but scratch the world and all that. It seems like a fancy way of just saying life is meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. You have your time here and then you're gone.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Life's just going to keep going. So it's kind of dark and depressing, but yeah, I'm enjoying seeing this, at least what I'm perceiving as a change in Fellison.
Yeah. I didn't even think of that. And I guess this saying reminded me more of like the nobles in Coltane's train, so to speak. Is just they're looking for they're looking for some resemblance of life in the situation that they have, but life crawls on, like life is going to move on whether they've established some type of culture and way of living that they're used to or not.
Yeah, I think I just looked at much darker than you. I mean, whether you're alive or not, the world's still spinning. I mean, they're just kind of, it's this really deep, dark sense of, I think, insignificance that she's feeling. Whatever she does in the world doesn't matter, and maybe that relates to her, acceptance of death that she keeps creeping towards.
Yeah, but also I'm curious as to Bowden hasn't been in the picture for what, 3 or 4 chapters now, 2 or 3 maybe. So I'm wondering if she's maybe letting go of his actions now that he's not around to remind her of his actions, if that makes sense.
Maybe, maybe she just kind of accepted it and moved on. Is what you mean?
Yeah, I definitely feel like Fellowson is kind of going through like what, the 7 stages of grief or whatever it is. Like first it's denial, then it's like acceptance. So
Yeah, yeah. I don't know all
yeah,
the steps, I
I could
guess.
be wrong. Yeah, but you know what I mean. Like I think that she is progressing through something.
Oh yeah, definitely. I didn't jot this one down, but I meant to make a point of talking about it. But when they're crawling through this hallway, this tunnel or whatever, and then they get to the other side of it, and they're like up above the whirlwind. The first time I read it, for some reason, I thought that they were like in a cave. I guess maybe it was just how it was worded, but I thought they were like underground. And so it wasn't until like I went through and like summarized it that it made sense to me that, oh, okay, well they're not actually underground. So I was really confused when it was talking about like, how the sun was this molten golden color and all of that. And like, well, how the hell is that working if they're underground? It just did not click in my head the first time I read it.
Got it. Makes sense. I guess the headcanon that I had around this particular, or like them exiting the underground cave, so to speak, was in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom when they come out of the train tracks. And there's like all that water shooting everywhere, and they're just like clinging to this ledge for life. That's essentially what I got, but instead of like water and crocodiles below, it's just this ravaging, unrelenting sand, whirling of sand. So I don't know if you remember that part or not, but
Not very well. It's been a long time since I watched the Indiana Jones movies.
I watched those movies religiously when I was younger because I just absolutely loved them. And that one was my favorite because there was crocodiles at the bottom.
Hey, you got to have a reason to make it your favorite.
So, but yeah, it was a cool section. I really want to understand like the holds thing more. I think it's interesting that that they couldn't find any unaligned cards because obelisk, which comes up quite a bit in this book, is not brought up, or is not a part of the holds, so to speak.
Yeah.
They couldn't find any of the unaligned cards, and obelisk being an unaligned card, I feel like it's kind of coincidental, but maybe there's more to it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you just grasped that concept with the deck better, and I'm sure this one with the holds, if we see more of that, will probably be similar.
Yeah. I definitely think it's related to, again, kind of the theme of this book, which is very past centric, and history related, as well as like the whole, this land of blood and bone that Nil Sarmo were talking about in previous chapters, so, and even related to Soul Taken and Divers, like I feel like all of this is related in some way, shape, or form.
I think it probably is also. I agree with you.
Yeah. But anyway, should we move on?
I have one last thought here.
Sure.
We get this quote from Heberick where he says, Rariku reshapes all who come to it. This is one truth you can cling to. I feel like Kalam said something similar in a chapter before. I can't remember exactly, but it just felt like it triggered something for me there.
Yeah, I guess I don't recall him specifically saying something. I can see him saying something like that. I feel like that's my bad. I thought that you were relating this to your above comment with fellows, and so.
Oh, no, it was different. I can't remember the exact quote, but I thought he had something.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I can't think of anything. I feel like if he would have said something, it would have been maybe while they were traveling inside of the Imperial Warren, and maybe this is like one of his thoughts that he had.
Yeah, it could have been.
Yeah, because Kalam, it's not his first venture into Rariku, so maybe that's a lesson that he learned the hard way. Maybe, I don't know.
Right. So that was all I had for that section. So if you want to move on to your next one here, I'm ready.
All right. Well, this one's a doozy, a little over 3 pages. So without further ado, I'll just get into it.
Take it away.
Felsen held on for dear life as Hebrick climbed his way down the rock face. She watched in fascination as Hebrick's ghost hands plunged into the rock face, while below, she heard his feet struggle for footing. It came to her realization that Hebrick was bearing the weight of them all with his hands and arms alone. The cliff was bathed in a glow of the setting sun. This makes Felsen think that they are being lowered into a cauldron of fire into some demonic realm. This was a one-way trip, and Raraku will claim them. The sands will bury every dream of vengeance, every desire, and every hope. We will all drown here in the desert. Winds slapped at them as they descended into the whirlwind. She could hear Culp screaming something, but was lost in the sound of the wind. She felt her body being pulled horizontally by the hungry wind. She hooked one of her arms around Hebrick's shoulders. Her muscles started to shudder with pain. She thinks to herself that this was hopeless and that the gods mock them at every turn. Felsen watched as wind abraded her skin. Her legs and body rode the wind while it continued to abrade her skin. She thought to herself, by the time she gets down, she'll be nothing but flesh and bone. Felsen unveiled in all her glory. Hebrick stepped away from the rock face, and they all fell onto a ragged floor of rocks. Felsen screamed as the sand and rocks made contact with her raw and torn flesh. She was on her back and was staring up the cliff. In the few moments where the sand and wind were thin, she could have sworn she saw a figure, 50 arm spans above, before it was swallowed by the wind and sand. Culp tugged at the straps with frantic haste, and Felsen rolled over and pulled herself up, thinking to herself that there's something coming, and that even she can feel it. Culp shouts to her to get up and to move, quickly. Felsen struggled upright as the wind tore at her back. Warm hands gripped around her, and she was lifted into the crook of rope-muscled arms. Hebrick told her to hold tight as they ran headfirst into the wind. She closed her eyes tightly as the wind continued to ravage her skin. She couldn't take any more and wished for Hood to take all of this. They stumbled into a sudden calm, and Culp hissed his surprise. Felsen opened her eyes, and through the haze of the whirlwind, she could see a vague shape tottering toward them. The air suddenly smelled of citrus perfume. 4 pale men in rags were carrying a plankin on which sat an umbrella and a fat figure wearing lavished silks. He squealed at them and rattled off all that he could provide them. A conversation about Felsen being for sale takes place. Hebrick says that the lemon smell is making his blind eyes water, but he only senses greed but no ill will. Culp agrees, but points out that his 4 companions look like they've been eaten. Culp asks the fat man how is he opposing the whirlwind right now. The fat man said that he didn't oppose but is a true believer, and the whirlwind has granted him ease of passage, and in exchange he constantly appeased the goddess. He explains that he is a merchant of select merchandise of the magical kind. He explains that he is returning from Shaik's camp to the Panpots and Odin. He smiles and then explains that he understands that they are Malazans and that cruelty finds no home in his soul. He continues on to tell them that he would enjoy their company, as his servants are obsessed with conversations surrounding their deaths and do nothing but complain. At a gesture, the servants set the chair down and 2 of them start to unpack, while the other 2 assist the man in the chair to his feet. The servant named Nub was ordered to carry a wooden chest with a potent salve over to them. The fat man noticed that Hebrick had no hands, to which he explained he had nothing to heal that type of injury. Hebrick assured the man that he didn't need anything but shelter from the wind, which was most appreciated. The fat man is able to quickly deduce that Hebrick was once a priest of Fenner, and it was a tragic tale of abandonment. Not continuing, he turned to Culp and asked if his warren was Mianis. Culp confronts the man and says that he does more than sell sorcerous trinkets. The fat man defends himself by saying that it was merely because of long proximity to it, and that he doesn't practice it, and that he didn't mean to offend. Not giving Culp a chance to respond, he turns to one of his undead servants and asks him what name he was given. The man replies that he was given the name Clam. Although he was once known as Iron Thalar, he is interrupted as the fat man tells him he doesn't care and to find that Falari wine. Calm went to Clam went to retrieve the wine. The servants that followed bickered about his death being worse. The fat man asks that the seven holies preserve them, and asks Culp if he could make a spell to silence the four bumbling servants. He would pay in jacatas for the spell. Culp said that this was not something he was able to do. Fat man shrugs in response and finally introduces himself. His name is Nawal Ibur, and merchant of the holy city Panpatsun. He asks for the names of the three before him. They all give their names except for Felizin, as she said nothing. Nawal asks if the lass was shy. His lips curled into a smile as he looked down upon her. Culp reached down and opened the wooden seal and retrieved a white clay bowl with a wax seal. Culp strode over to Felizin with the healing salve. Felizin asked how Culp was able to escape the wind tearing his skin. Culp said that he didn't know and that it was likely that it was because he had his warren open. Felizin was like, why the hell didn't you extend the influence over to me? Culp said that he thought he had, and the mage helps Felizin apply the salve to areas she couldn't reach. Half the bowl was gone, and she could feel the last agonizing pain lift away. She suddenly felt exhausted and sat in the sand. A wine glass appeared in front of her. Nawal tells her to drink as he cares for her well-being. Most deeply. Felizin bluntly asks why he cares so deeply. The fat guy explains that he is wealthy and could offer her much, and that he is most gentle. Felizin gulped down a glass of wine and said, "Are you now?" Nawal said that this is promised. Inside Felizin's mind, she's telling herself that she could do worse, and contemplates the lavish life she could have. Her thought is interrupted when he states out loud that he senses wisdom in her, and he would not press, but let her come to her own conclusion. Bedrolls had been laid out as darkness closed in around them. Lanterns had been placed and circled the camp. Felizin kept refilling her glass with wine. To make conversation with the undead man standing next to her, she asked how it was that he died. He explained that it was forbidden to talk about. Culp from across the camp tells her to go easy on the booze, and she'll need her wits about her. In defiance, she finished her glass and got it refilled. She then told the mage why should she, as it hasn't helped her yet. Nawal had returned to his chair and smiled upon his company. He attempts to make small talk about where they are going, what they were doing out here, if they had news of the rebellion. Felizin tells him that they are going nowhere. Nawal asked if she would consider revising her revising her destination then. Felizin questions whether he meant to be their protection and asked how he would protect them. Nawal smoothly answered her questions and ended up complimenting her beauty. Felizin replied by asking what his wife would think. Nawal admitted that he was sadly a widower. Tapu skewers sizzled. Nawal abruptly turns to the mage and asks him why he opened his warren. Culp admits that he senses no harm. However, he is impressed by the spells surrounding them, as they are high castings. The ground trembled suddenly, and a huge brown shoulder pushed up against the sphere of protection magic that was surrounding them. The creature was huge, maybe 3 arm lengths high. Nawal seems to grow frustrated, but tells everyone to remain calm. Felizin watched as the bear swiped its claws at the magical sphere, leaving trails in the magic, then quickly healed. Nawal surged upright and told the beast to go back. The bear pawed at the protection sphere as if it was frustrated at hearing this. Nawal was dark with fury, but managed to tell everyone that they were safe and that this creature would not succeed. Culp strode up to the merchant, and the merchant stepped back. Culp turned his back to the merchant and said out loud that it was a soul taken and very strong. From where Felizin sat, she watched as the body of the merchant seemed to sink beneath his silks, his skin deepening into glistening black fur. Sharp spice overpowered the citrus smell. Rats poured forth a growing flood. Hebrick tried to scream a warning, but it was too late. The rats enveloped Culp in the hundreds. Hebrick dove into the mass of rats. His ghost hands were glowing gauntlets of fire, one jade and the other rust red. Rats flinched as each one the ex-priest grabbed would melt away into flesh and bone. The rats dispersed from the place Culp had lain. Felizin saw a flash of wet bone and a ragged raincoat. She could not comprehend the significance of that. The soul taken beyond the barrier was attacking it in a frenzy. The bear did seem to be making progress, as the wounds in the barrier seemed to be slower in closing. The rats suddenly rose to a crest and were about to swarm around Hebrick. The ex-priest was screaming as he stepped away. A hand clutched Felizin's collar and sat her upright. Felizin turned around to see Bowden's weathered face. He was holding 4 of the lanterns. He told her to grab Hebrick and run, and pushed her towards the ex-priest, who was still backing away. 2 tons of bear were pushing through the barrier. Bowden leapt past Hebrick and smashed one of the lanterns on the ground, spreading hot oil and spreading flames. A furious scream erupted from the rats. The rats crashed down on Bowden, but he did not go down, like they had accomplished with Culp. He swung the remaining lanterns, shattering them and erupting himself and the rats in flame. Felizin reached Hebrick. The ex-priest was covered in small wounds. His sightless eyes seemed to be focused on an internal horror that matched the scene before them. She grabbed his arm and pulled him to the side. Inside Felizin's mind, she could hear the merchant trying to entice her to stay. She hesitated. Inside her mind, he continued to plead that all she had to do was let him take Bowden and Hebrick and then deal with Messembre, a soul taken that doesn't like him very much. She heard pain in those words, as if desperate. Bowden would not fall, killing rat after rat, yet they still surged over him. The mass of rats started to smother the flames. Felizin glanced at the soul-taken bear and then told him no, and that the Divers were in trouble. She took a hold of Hebrick and guided him towards the dying barrier. The whirlwind had started its own assault on the barrier, the wind and sand whipping at her face. Inside her head, the merchant told her to wait, and why was she being so stubborn? And why, last of all, would she not die? Felizin could not help but grin. She responded in her thoughts that she would know that it doesn't work like that. Hebrick gasped and told her to wait, as what about Culp? Coldness gripped Felizin as her thoughts instantly went to Culp being dead. Devoured as I sat drunk, watched and uncaring, noticing nothing. She bit back a sob and pushed Hebrick outside the barrier as it collapsed. The soul-taken bear could be heard as it roared triumphantly, surge into the horde of rats. She did not turn to see the assault, nor the fate of Bowden. Dragging Hebrick, she ran into the dusk-darkened storm.
So, I had this realization as you were reading it, and
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you are gonna, I'm wondering if you noticed this, because I didn't pick it up until you were reading through it. But when Felizin, well, and you didn't, I don't think you had it as a comment here, as a talking point. But when Felizin thinks she sees a figure up on the rock face, that's got to be Bowden, right?
Oh, yeah. That had to have been Bowden. So I wonder if it wasn't Soul Taken that were chasing them, but it was Bowden. But no, because they were smelling scents. So, or Bowden is a Soul Taken.
Or there was just multiple things chasing them.
That too. That's I guess I'll start with my comments at the beginning of the section here, and we'll just kind of work our way towards. But I thought it was really like a cool visual when Hebrick's ghost hands were plunged into the rock face. And I'm thinking, because his feet obviously are not ghost feet, and he's struggling for footing, that he's actually grabbing like old school handholds that existed on this rock face in the past, potentially. And that's why they are like plunged physically into the rock face. That was all I could really think about. And now that I'm saying it out loud, it sounds terribly wrong. But yeah, I feel like he's grabbing on to like a past way up. Maybe there was a ladder that existed there, or steps, or
I guess I just kind of thought he was driving his hands into the rock and
anchoring them there like a rock
yeah.
climber's anchor, whatever the fuck they're called. Those
Yeah, I guess I didn't think that there was personally I didn't think there was some sort of like specific handhold in there or anything like that. It was just kind of like he's punching his way into it, I guess.
That makes more sense. Well, oh well. That was just kind of my thought. Not that, my thoughts have to be 100% right, because we all know they're fucking not. But that's just where my mind was. The other thing that I thought was what? Sorry.
I was just saying, no, there's nothing to say that my thought was right on it either. Just that was just how I thought of it.
No, makes sense. The beauty of reading things at the, you know, same time, and the fact that you can kind of come out with two different outcomes for a very small, non-story related detail. So the other thing that I thought was interesting is she says that the sands will bury every dream of vengeance, every desire, and every hope. We will all drown here in the desert. And I think it's interesting that is the word that's used, drown, because Raraku used to be a sea. So I don't know what to make of it, but I just thought it was cool.
Maybe just more foreshadowing that it's going to turn back to a sea.
Kind of. I guess that's where I would say the majority of my mind is going with that particular comment. So yeah. One of the other cool things, well, not really cool, but just kind of like when the wind is whipping and tearing her skin, they use the word abraded. And I could just think of like sandpaper, dude. Like just sandpaper all over her skin because the wind is hitting her that hard.
Or like I think they talk about like a cat's tongue too, like
right, yeah.
Which that's kind of sandpapery too.
Right. So I can imagine why she would think that by the time she got to the bottom, she would just be flesh and bone. So yeah. Outside of that, I thought it was a cool visual, very painful visual. So
not awesome.
And kind of going, I guess my next point is back to what you mentioned in the last section about Malazan changing a little bit, because obviously, she's so ravaged by the wind and her skin being torn and abraded, right? And she was just like, I can't take any more. Hood, take all of this. And I thought it was funny or interesting and aligned with your comment that it's not them, like she doesn't mean it as in like Hood, take us, but rather she wishes that Hood would take the wind and the torment away. But I guess that could be a way of saying death take me, now that I'm saying it out loud again. But as I was reading it, it kind of sounded like unlike Malazan. So
I don't know. I guess maybe I agree with your first thought. I definitely didn't pick that up reading it.
Okay.
But I think that's an interesting take, and she just wants the wind to stop, doesn't necessarily want to die.
Right. Yeah, she just wants the pain to stop, which is understandable in that situation. So yeah. The next thought that I had was when Nawal is first like introduced, I thought it was just a very weird introduction of this character, because he rambles on about what he can offer them all. And the most interesting one I could pick out to talk about was that his chair that he sat in was artful sorcery invested into his chair. So can he control what his chair is doing? Or is there like a specific set of things it can and cannot do?
I guess I don't know. Something else. I guess I don't remember that specific part or picking that up. But you're right. Definitely a very weird introduction to this character.
Right. Yeah. So I didn't know because like he says that he's been around sorcery, but he's not like a mage himself. Like it doesn't. I get the feeling that he cannot access a Warren, but if his chair is like infused with magic, are there limits? I guess is kind of what I'm wondering.
I want to bring something up, but once we get through the rest of your points regarding this, because I feel like maybe you'll bring it up, but I'm not 100% sure, so I don't want to steal it from you if you're
Uh,
going to.
well, I think I know where you're going with it, and I think it's safe that we could talk about it. There's no point
I,
in waiting.
let's, okay, well, go for it then.
All right. All right. This next thought or comment that I had was around like Hebrick, and particularly when he says that the lemon smell is making his blind eyes water. And I get the premise that he's blind in some way, shape, or form, but I don't exactly recall the reason. And is it because he's seeing the past through his eyes, so therefore he's blind to the present? At least that's kind of where my head canon is around it.
Yeah, I don't know, because it seems like he can see some things and not others, but I haven't really been able to make sense of that.
Right. Okay. And that's what I'm going with is that like he has these moments, these memories, right? And that's not allowing him to see what's present, I guess. I don't know.
I guess that kind of makes sense because we see that a little bit later in this chapter too. So,
Right.
yeah, maybe you're onto something there.
Gotcha. Another thing that I picked out was that Culp, when he was asked to cast a spell to silence the four bumbling servants, Felizin has a moment of thought where she is sure that Culp was lying.
Oh, yeah, I think he was full of shit. Because
Yeah,
obviously, like we see him, he closed up that tear in the war, with the dragon and everything. Like, surely you could silence these, bumbling idiots if you really wanted to.
but I guess my question is why do you think Culp is a little defiant here? Not necessarily defiant, maybe that's a bad word, but more just like unwilling to please Nawal here.
I guess I kind of thought maybe he just didn't want to do this guy any favors.
So do you feel like this is maybe a very subtle indication that things are going to go sour?
I guess I didn't think so. It was just kind of like, I guess I kind of felt like he's like, oh, well, I just met you. I don't really have any interest in helping you.
Fair enough.
Yet. Maybe he would have if things progressed differently, but like I guess why I mean if you just met somebody and they're like, "Hey, can I borrow $20?" You're going to be like, "I just met you 5 seconds ago." Probably not yet.
Sure. Fair. I guess I related this with after Nawal introduces himself, Felizin also has a quick thought about how his introduction was oddly put. So I feel like these are kind of two moments of what comes later in the section, and that Nawal is just a dog and pony show at this point. Like he's trying to build trust, so to speak. I guess is my like he was gonna kill them while they all slept, but the bear intervened. So he was forced to become a pile of rats, a flood of rats, you know? And on top of that, when Culp opens his warren and says that he's impressed by the spells surrounding them as they are like high castings. So I feel like it's further evidence of this fat dude's identity, maybe. And these three things just make me feel like subtly hinting that this dude is kind of full of shit. And I'm not at this point, I wasn't really believing anything that he was saying anymore. So
Okay, so who do you think this guy is?
I think it's Grylan, right?
I'm not going to disagree with you. I mean, yeah, because he is the one that turned into rats.
Right.
Um, I'm not going to say that I subscribe to this, but I'm going to give a quick Twitter shout out to at Orso's wife. I think they just finished the whole book, but they had a thread going on of, I guess there was spoilers in it. as it went. So there was a point where I had to stop reading the thread, but I caught something, and I think it was relating to this chapter. I don't know 100%, but maybe this will like blow your mind a little bit. I think what Orso's wife said was, I saw something about Krupp,
Oh,
and I don't know if I believe it, but when I reread this chapter a second time, like I felt like it hit a lot of notes. Like, okay, there's definitely some similarities here, and so I was trying to like rack my brain, like, were there maybe any hints in Gardens of the Moon that Krupp was a diver? I don't know. I don't remember. So I'm not 100% on board with it, but it seems interesting, because this guy says he was around magic and stuff. So yeah, I don't know, but it was definitely interesting, and I think what that tweet was relating to this chapter. I don't know. I saw enough. I'm like, oh fuck. So I scrolled past it. So I didn't read anything else. So yeah, I don't know. What do you think about that?
I'm not. I have to disagree. I can't see how this would be corrupt.
It was an interesting thought if that's how it related. But I mean, you see this fat guy, and I felt like he talked like Krupp would talk.
No, Krupp is more like he was more Krupp was obnoxious when he talked. Like he was very overtly like beat around the bush in like a very nonsensical, like knowledgeable way almost. Whereas this guy seemed to be, full of shit, but definitely direct in what he was saying.
You don't think it was obnoxious that he tried to buy Fellison?
I mean, that's definitely obnoxious, but I can't see Krupp doing that.
I mean, there are things that seemed out of place, but to me, I thought there were some similarities. Like I said, I'm not 100% buying into it. I don't even know if that's what this was really talking about.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, I'm not subscribing, but I don't know that it was. I'm not sure that I buy that it's Grillin either. I mean, because I felt like he talked differently as well.
Well, I don't even remember the interaction with Grillin. Can you remind me about that part?
I think that was when Duiker and Sormo, they have their like, God, I don't even know what the fuck you want to call it, but they have
They're like
their vision or whatever.
Yeah, the ritual.
Yeah, but I don't know. I thought we got a few words out of Grillin, and maybe this is Grillin. I don't know. Like I said, I'm on the fence. I'm not sure yet, but I don't know. Just a talking point I thought would be interesting to bring up.
Sure. No, absolutely. Definitely very interesting and one that I was not expecting at all. But I feel
Nice.
like
Well, cool.
yeah, I feel like the fact that Masembre, the bear, which was very buddy with Mappo / Acarium, I think that he knew what was going to happen and tried to get in to save them. Which is why, we get the frenzy of him pounding on this magical barrier. And what ultimately I feel gets, Nawal to execute his plan before he wanted to, which is why I think he was so pissed off. So, and the one thing that I thought was cool about his undead servants, and that, there had been moments where the fellows in Hebrick or Culp kind of noticed that they were like gnawed on or eaten, or they were like missing pieces. And it was because Nawal was turning into rats and feeding on them.
I just like as you were about to start talking, I made that connection, but I definitely did not make that connection reading the book. But it does make sense. Like, and yeah, that would probably be a pretty terrible way to die, to basically be slowly over time eaten alive by rats.
Right. Yep. My other comment kind of goes back towards Hebrick and his jade hand, and then the other one is like rust red or whatever. So back when they were being picked up on the island, the jade hand was writhing or like almost contesting with the red, or what I assumed to be Otatero, right? So is it possible that the Otatero fighting with the jade dissipated as it was no longer in proximity with the Otero mines? And that is why Hebrick is receiving these memories? Or did like
Uh,
the Otatero move to the other hand?
that's a lot deeper than I thought about it.
So I think the reason why he's getting these memories now is because the Otatero is gone and allowing the jade magic, this ancient jade magic from the finger, is now allowing to Hebrick to see memories. You know, the other hand, opposite of the one that's jade, is rust red. So I immediately go to Otatero, but I feel like that's so wrong.
I no comment. I don't know.
Uh,
Sorry.
no, it's fine. But the other thing that I had was when he was grabbing the rats, they would melt away into flesh and bone. So I feel like this is where we get an answer to your question earlier on in the book about what happens to Divers and Soul Taken when one is killed. You remember asking Peter about that, and he was just like, I've got no comment.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I feel like a soul taken's probably the easier answer, but I still don't really know. Like, I don't, and maybe you'll explain it here, but I don't know that I have a very clear like answer on my own yet as far as what happens.
So here's my interpretation. So it seems like to me that when a soul taken is killed, then the body that controlled it is just existing, but no longer able to make that like connection, or potentially just unconscious, like we saw with Nil, right? So that's kind of how I feel about Soul Taken, like an Avatar situation. I know that that's like a really goofy comparison, but you know, Taken is killed, the body is not dead, that was controlling it. I mean, it kind of seems like they turn into a Soul Taken, so maybe I'm not right in that, but like Animander Rake morphed into, you know, a dragon. So I would assume that once that dragon is killed, the body is unconscious or it dies.
Yeah, that I guess that was my thought on a soul taken. Like, if you kill, like in your example, if somebody managed to kill Animander Rake as he were a dragon, like I would think he would just be. Is
Right.
kind of what I thought.
Gotcha. Divers, though, they are, in the way I'm interpreting this, they are small parts of one's body. So the fact that Nawal was fat, I believe, is on purpose because there is more mass to make rats. So if rats are killed in this case, it's a good chance it's not a vital organ that gets demolished, but rather fat. And it's just an interesting way to die it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I could kind of see that, but it still makes me wonder. Like, you know, if you got 100 rats and you know two of them die, like, do you like lose a little bit of yourself too? Like in that, that's kind of what makes me wonder.
That's how I'm imagining it too. But also, he clearly has healing salves. So I'm assuming that he's probably just healing that part of his body, and then getting fatter, you
Yeah,
know?
definitely could be.
So I guess that's my interpretation of it. I feel like that's pretty solid, but yeah.
I can get on board with that. I just like it just makes me wonder like does it make you a little bit more insane or something like each time a little PC dies like you know I don't know.
Maybe. I feel like it's more a physical thing than it would be like a spiritual thing. You know, it's just like, oh, well, this rat was my index finger. Oh, it died. Now I don't have an index finger, you know? Or so I think that's a reason why he's fat. And the way that he's described is that, you know, Felsen makes a lot of points about how she can see like the many folds on him, which makes me think that he is like severely obese. You know, like my 600-pound life on TLC obese. You know what I mean? Like big.
See, now this is just in my head. That's maybe that's why Krupp was really always eating.
maybe, maybe. But yeah, I guess I don't know. I don't even care if I'm right or wrong, but like that's the headcanon I have until I'm proven otherwise.
Shown otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get on with that.
Um What did you think about Bowden showing up the first time you read this?
I was like, oh, sweet. Like I thought we'd see him again.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess did you get the sense that like he wasn't just doing his duty, he was like he cared?
Yeah. And I was kind of like, well, where the fuck did he come from? And then again, like as you were reading things, I had this realization, like that must have been him on the cliff. So that makes sense. He was following behind a ways.
Right, right. And last but not least, Culp. Is he dead? I feel like he's dead.
I feel like he's probably dead too, but it's just kind of like, well, but what if he just illusioned himself to like look like that?
Possible, very possible. But
I guess I would lean to he's probably dead, but it seems kind of like it's almost anticlimactic the way he goes out.
I don't think so. I feel like it fits, you know? I mean, where else is it going to take these people, you know?
Maybe this is gonna sound like an asshole thing to say, but maybe underwhelming is a better word. Like, but it just goes back to kind of that quote earlier in the chapter, just how like life doesn't matter. So it's just gonna keep going on, right? So I think he's probably dead, but there's a little piece of me that's holding on that maybe we'll see him again. But I'd lean more. He's
Well, I mean, I felt that way about Stormy and Gessler, and I'm pretty sure that they're dead. I mean, they haven't been mentioned at all since, you know, the boat was engulfed in flames from the dragon. And how
one of those guys had the
anticlimactic,
one of those guys had the Talan Imus sword, right?
right?
Fuck, that was so cool, and that's just gone.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I mean, I feel like that was pretty unclimactic climate
Yeah.
because, you know,
Oh,
now he's got no stories to tell.
yeah.
Dead men tell no tales.
Well, I don't know. Well, I guess you're right because even the undead servants they couldn't tell how they died. That'd be a story.
Hmm. Well, yeah,
No.
Nub, Nub and Clam, which I thought was interesting. They, as all the events were unfolding, they just sat there laughing. I don't know if you remember that part, but all four of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I do remember thinking that was odd.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, they're totally forced to be there, you know. They're clearly dead. Died horribly. So, anyway, those are all my thoughts about that very immersive section. And I said it before we were really recording, but I want to say that this is like one of my top five or one of the top five scenes so far in this book. It was beautiful, unexpected. Didn't really see things coming the way that it did. Definitely added a lot of questions, which I again will hopefully be revealed. But yeah, it was a really cool section.
Yeah, yeah, it was cool for sure.
But with that, I say we move on.
All right. I may even try a little voice work in this section here, Justin. So we'll see how that goes. The group didn't make it very far. The fury of the sandstorm forced them into whatever shelter they could find, which was a small overhang of some rock. They huddled together, waiting for death to arrive. The alcohol in Felsen's body lulled her to sleep. At first she thought to resist it, then she gave in to it, thinking that the horrors would soon find her, and witnessing her own death wasn't very comforting. Before she passed out, she thought she should tell Heberick the true value of knowledge, but he would soon find its value. It wouldn't be long now. She woke up to silence. No, not silence. Someone nearby was weeping. The storm had passed, but there was still dust hanging in the air. Not only that, but the dust was so thick all around them you could only see a few feet ahead. Felsen thought the divers were back, but the air was still. She sat up, feeling the effects of a hangover. Heberick was nearby with his invisible hands working his face, pulling skin as if he wore a mask. His whole body shook with grief. Her memory came back to her. Culp, she thought. She said he should have sent something. Heberick didn't understand. She snapped at him and said, "The mage! The bastard was a diver's. He should have known." Heberick said he wished he had her armor. If he did, he would stay with her and protect her, though he would wonder why he would bother. But he would do it still. Felsen didn't know what he was talking about. Heberick said he was poisoned by the divers, and it fights with the other parts of his soul. He doesn't know if he will survive it. She hardly heard him, as her attention was pulled another way. Someone was coming. She stood to face the sound. Who she saw, she didn't expect. It was Bowden, or what was left of him. He was burned, parts of him eaten and gnawed away, other parts burned down to the bone. The heat had bloated the gases in his belly so that he looked pregnant. Where his eyes and nose and mouth should have been were only empty holes, but she knew it was him. He took another step and fell to the ground. Heberick asked what was going on and who had come, as he was truly blind to this. She said it was no one. She walked and sat next to Bowden and laid his head on her lap. He was aware of her. He spoke, and though it was a labored effort, I thought the fire immune. She said he was wrong. He fought on. My vow. Fellison echoed his words. Your vow, he uttered. Your sister. Fellison replied. Tavor. He tried to speak. She. But Fellison cut him off. Don't. No. Bowden, say nothing of her. He drew in another labored breath. You. She wished he would die right now so she didn't have to hear his words. You were not what I expected. Armor can hide anything until the moment it breaks away. Even a child. Especially a child.
Give this guy an Emmy, man.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, that was really impactful. Especially those last few sentences of that. I feel like, you could almost just end the chapter right there.
Right. Yeah, it is really powerful. And at the end of the day, she gets her wish.
Yeah, she does. But I think I feel like she's got some regrets of that.
Yeah.
I don't have a ton on this section, as it was transitional and fairly straightforward, but I think when she's thinking about telling Heberick the true value of knowledge, I think she's just saying that it's worthless, and in the end it doesn't matter. Knowledge is really just inconsequential. It doesn't matter. I don't know how you took that, but that's how I took it.
What, the armor thing?
No, the true value of knowledge, but Heberick would soon find it enough. Because I think Fellison thought, okay, well, we're going to die. So all this knowledge that Heberick has, I'm going to tell him that it doesn't mean shit. But he's going to figure that out soon enough.
I guess that makes sense. I understood what it was saying, but I guess I had a hard time when I was reading it, putting it to any type of contextual value. So yeah, that's great work, dude.
Maybe just my dark self, I guess. I don't know.
No, it's fine. I have plenty of moments where, I go into this dark mode, but I guess you're relating it to the knowledge that he's getting from these memories, right? And kind of going back to when she's observing Culp and Heberick kind of have this like argument between suspicions and knowledge. Right?
I guess I was just thinking like any type of knowledge, really. Okay. Certainly that, what you're talking about, but even like anything else too.
Yeah, that's fair. It's true. Fellison is definitely wise for her age. It's just she's going through stages of grief, and one moment she doesn't give a fuck, and then the next she's thinking very profoundly. So like someone in her situation, right? And everything that she's been through, you are going to be a little topsy-turvy with your thoughts. So I feel like it just adds that beautiful realism to the Fellowson as a character.
Yeah, for sure. My other comment on this section, the last three sentences of this section: armor can hide anything until the moment it breaks away, even a child, especially a child. I think it was just that was way too good of a line for me not to include in here. And I feel like this is going to be the moment that really breaks Fellison. I think we'll probably see that moving forward, because we know she wanted to kill Bowden. Like, if she saw him, like, she wanted to kill him. And she made that plain and clear. She said, if I see you, I'm going to kill you, or you're going to have to kill me to stay alive. And she didn't get the chance to do that. And he ends up saving her. But now she sees, the cost of, I think she sees the cost of her wish. Maybe things could have been different if she didn't send him off. I think given the situation, even if he was like traveling with, he probably is still going to end up dying here, right?
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, we don't know that for certain. But I mean, we see, even through all this nastiness of Fellison that he put up with throughout the story up until basically this point, he fulfilled his vow as best he could, and it ended up costing him his life. And I think that's going to hit her hard.
Right. Well, and especially like think about all of the thoughts that Felsen has around death and Hood, right? And I remember one particularly is, and I don't remember specifically what chapter this was in, but not too long ago, she has this thought about Hood. She always thought that Hood wanted like these super terrible deaths, and she comes to the realization that he would just be happy no matter how they died. But like,
Yeah.
think about that thought compared to how Bowden actually died.
Well, he had a pretty horrible death.
Right. I mean, this is I can't think of anything more like brutal and terrifying way to go. Like this was a slow and painful death. And
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of death in both these books, but I mean, probably so far this is the worst death that we've seen, or like most gruesome.
right, which in itself is kind of a statement of, how Felizan felt about him, right? So maybe it's the universe following the thought, right?
Yeah,
But
it could be.
yeah, good section. I definitely was in my feels during this. It was definitely tough to read because it's
Yeah,
just
it was not
boom,
easy.
boom. Hebrick is distraught. Culp's gone. Bowden is essentially like dying in her arms. So, it's just all at once.
Yeah, it was tough.
But anyway, I guess outside of that, I don't really have anything else to say about it. I don't know.
No, I feel like we covered it well.
All right. Well, here's my last section. There was nothing to distinguish between sky and earth. Stillness had embraced the earth. Fiddler pulled himself onto the crest. The rocks hitting other rocks was almost too loud to Fiddler's ears. He wiped sweat from his brow and thought to himself that this bodes ill. Mappo could be seen emerging from the haze ahead. His walk was a shamble due to the exhaustion the trail exhibited. Mappo pops a squat next to Fiddler and tells the sapper the trail winds over ever onward, and he believes that she is with her father now. The trail hesitated, and Fiddler agreed that it was the whirlwind goddess. The trail is heard saying that there is expectancy in the air. Fiddler just grunts in response to this. Mappo suggests to Fiddler that they should join the others. Icarium had found a flat rock that was surrounded by boulders. Crocus sat leaned up against one. Fiddler observed that the expression on the Daru lad's face was that of a much older man. Crocus states that she isn't turning back. Fiddler said nothing and set his crossbow down. Icarium clears his throat and tells the lad that it's time to eat. He then can be heard telling Crocus that worrying is like a rocking horse. It gives you something to do, but doesn't take you anywhere, and that the body still needs to eat. Crocus, while getting up, said it was already too late. Icarium addresses this and states that they have already traveled 2 warrens, both feeling old and ancient, as if from the rock of Raraku itself, and at one point he had smelled the sea. Crocus argues that Apsalar's journey is to the point where things as rebirth are probable, but he asks if he's right in saying that. Icarium says that it's possible, but the still air hints at uncertainty, as well as one should be mindful of that. In an effort to reassure the lad, Mappo interjects that Apsalar, with her godly gifts, could have easily thrown them off her trail, but she didn't, and that means that she intended to lead them. Fiddler also pipes in with comments about how Apslar knows Quick Ben and Kalam's intent. It's possible that Apslar took this into consideration, and by assuming Shaik's guise, she would indirectly support their efforts, in a manner that is her own choosing instead of the god who once possessed her. Mappo smiled and stated that there was much that Fiddler withheld from himself and Icarium. Fiddler couldn't make eye contact with the Trell, but responded by saying it was an imperial matter. Mappo says that this imperial matter aligns with taking advantage of the land during a rebellion. Fiddler says that taking advantage would only work in the short run. Mappo details that once Apslar becomes Shaik Reborn, she will not simply be changing uniform. The intent and motivations of the goddess will take hold of the lass's mind and soul. Those visions will change her. Fiddler ended the conversation by saying that he's afraid she may not realize that possibility. Crocus snaps and tells them all that she's no idiot. Fiddler reassures the lad that he doesn't think that she is, and whether they like it or not, Apslar will possess something of a godlike arrogance. He witnessed this back on Genebacus in full force, and can see that this arrogance will reside within her. Take, for example, her leaving Puth's temple alone to pursue her father. Mappa wonders if Crocus thinks that she can withstand the influence of the goddess, even as she assumes the role. Crocus scowled and admitted that his mind tumbles between thoughts. What if the patron of assassins has already claimed her? What will it mean if the rebellion is led by Cotillion and by extension Amanus? The dead emperor returning to wreak vengeance? Everyone was dead silent. Fiddler had been contemplating that when it occurred to him several days earlier. The thought of the dead emperor coming back to take the throne was not a good thought. It was one thing to want Lucine dead, as this was a mortal affair, but this action would cause other ascendants, and with such a contest, would leave civilizations destroyed. They all finished their meal without another word spoken. Icarium was repacking the supplies. Fiddler strode over to Crocus and told him not to worry, and at least she had been reunited with her father after all these years, and that was a good thing. Crocus smiles and admits that yes, this is a good thing, and he's happy for her, but he's mistrustful. What should have been a happy reunion has been ruined by the manipulations of Puth. Fiddler tells the lad that however he imagined it, it's essentially Apslar's choice. Crocus was silent and eventually nodded in agreement. Fiddler shoulders his crossbow and tells him that at least they have a respite from Soul Taken and Divers and Shaik warriors. Crocus asks the sapper where she was leading them. Fiddler says that they'll soon find out. So, I guess my first point is when Fiddler is kind of, reaching this crest, his feet are basically putting rocks in motion down the hill. And because of the storm and that stillness that they're kind of experiencing, it's just an interesting way to let us know that the storm has ceased. And what was a cascade of noise is nothing but stillness. So the fact that these rocks are so loud to him is because he's so used to the environment being just crazy loud. So I thought it was a really cool way of giving us that environment, that vision.
Yeah, instead of it's more descriptive,
right?
Which is nice.
Yeah, I just like that kind of stuff. Also, Crocus is pretty argumentative here, and he's got a bit of the Duikers, right? But also, I feel like instead of getting emotional about it, like we would have seen in Gardens of the Moon, he's really analyzing these situations, even though he doesn't have a ton of experience with this. And while optimism isn't considered, it does, to me at least, show some maturity. Granted, he still has his moments of emotional outbursts, but I feel like they're more calculated and thought out. So I think Crocus as a character is definitely growing. I don't hate him as much as I did in Gardens of the Moon. And while he still does have some emotional outbursts, they definitely seem to have thought behind it instead of irrational.
Yeah, he definitely seems to be more tactical.
Right. which I think is funny that Fiddler kind of sees the face of like an older man. So I think that
He's maturing.
right. Yeah. He's definitely maturing. And I think it's really interesting all of the things that they kind of talk about, right? Crocus is definitely in this this pessimistic view of Apsalar coming back. And Icarium, Fiddler, and Mappo are all trying to like not necessarily reassure him, but just provide maybe an explanation for some of his concerns and worries. So I thought it was a very, very cool way of explaining the dynamic between these characters. Like nobody's super pissed off. Croc is probably the most pissed off, but like they all seem to genuinely like try to, at least, ease his mind a little bit.
Yeah.
The last thing that I had about this section was I thought it was really funny how after Crocus admits what he's thinking, it almost seems like the lad has a point giving the silent reaction that everyone had. And I wonder if this is some heavy like foreshadowing of what's to come. It seems like a good possibility to me that Crocus's thoughts about um, the dead emperor returning to wreak vengeance and that drawing in ascendants and civilizations being destroyed, I feel like is maybe where this is going.
I think with what we've read so far in this book series, that seems to make sense.
Yeah. So I feel like Kellenved is not going to be the same Kellenved. And as much as I feel like the bridge burners think that there's loyalty there, he's just casting them away because, fuck them, right? So I think that they're probably, hopefully, well, maybe not hopefully, but eventually I think that they'll just get to the point where they're betrayed, and do whatever it is that they're going to do to either prevent it while killing Lucine. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so hard to predict where the story is going to go. I mean, with 7.25 books to go, I'm sure we're going to get all sorts of twists and turns here. It's hard to put together a thought out prediction, I guess, for me.
Right. And it's not 8 books anymore. It's more like 14 books.
Right. Okay. In the main series.
Yeah. And then like 7 novellas
Yeah.
and a sequel.
Yeah.
So
and a prequel.
And a prequel. Yep. Yeah, I guess we got a while.
We got a while.
But
you're stuck with us.
Yep, you're stuck with us. But anyway, I don't have any other comments for that. I thought it was a good transition piece from what we previously read to kind of more of establishing what these characters are doing and where they're headed. So if you want to,
it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah.
All right, last section here. I feel like I probably said the same thing last time. It wound up where my section was the last one, but I feel like it doesn't happen very often.
No, it doesn't.
The weathered man stood on some rocks facing Raraku. The silence was everything. He could hear his own heartbeat, so much that it began to haunt him. The Toblakai arrived with a lizard. He said, "Everyone has come out for a look around. For once, a meal worth eating." The Toblakai was gaunt. His temper tantrums had stopped, and Leoman was thankful for that, but he knew the cause of the fits was his strength wasting away. A few days prior, the Toblakai said they would wait there until Hood takes them. This was when the whirlwind seemed to have a renewed lease on life. As for that, Leoman had no answer. His faith was crumbling. Shaik's corpse still laid wrapped in the same location, even though she had begun to shrink. But now a change had come. The desert had been lifted up out of the rocks. The whirlwind held its breath, the dust refusing to settle. The Toblakai, however, saw this as the whirlwind's death, the prolonged tantrum of a defeated goddess rampaging in frustration and fury. Even as the rebellion bled the 7 cities, its heart was dead. The armies of the apocalypse were just just twitching limbs on a dead body. The Toblakai told Leomin that this meal would give them strength. Leomin thought strength for leaving, but where would they go? To the oasis in the center of Raraku, where a dead woman's army awaits? Are they supposed to deliver the tragic news of failure, or just run into the sunset and hope to be forgotten? He looked across the ground, his eyes stopping on the book of Dryjana, immune to the whirlwind, not even bothered by the dust. When he looked at that book, he knew that the power abides, the dude abides. He could not let go. He thought, blades in one hand and unhanded in wisdom, young yet old, one life whole, another incomplete. She shall emerge renewed. He wondered if there was still truth in those words. Toblakai said he could go west, into the Jag Ohen. Leomin looked over and thought he would come face to face with other giants there, the Jags themselves, the Trell, and other savages. He'll feel right at home. Leomin said this wasn't over. He could tell by looking at the Toblakai's posture that it had made a decision. He told the Toblakai to take the rest of the kill. He would need it more. He would need it more than him. Toblakai said he makes a joke. He does not see himself as he sees him. He is skin and bone. When he looks at him, he sees the skull behind the face. Leomin said he was still of sound mind. Toblakai asked if this was the secret revelation of Raraku. Madness is simply a state of mind. Leomin replied that the sayings of fools are aptly named. His voice trailed off. He felt something in the air. His heartbeat picked up its pace. They turned to face the ancient gate. The dust in the air had begun to swirl. Toblakai asked what was happening. Leomin looked at the book. The cover glistened as if it was sweating. He stepped towards the gate as two figures emerged, side by side, arms wrapped around each other, headed straight for the pillars and the corpse between them. One was an old man, the other a young girl. He noticed how much she looked like Shaik. Toblakai dropped to his knees and bowed his head to the strangers that approached. The girl raised her head as she found the body of Shaik. Raising her eyes more, she found Leomin and Toblakai. As she stood over the body, her hair rising as if full of static, Leomin dropped to one knee and said, "You are reborn." She laughed and said, "So I am." She adjusted her grip on the man and said to help her with him, "But beware of his hands." Well, Justin, I feel like you got two strikes on you here after reading that section.
One more than likely confirmed, yes. The other not so much. Because
You don't think so?
We've seen magic infused with sticks and rocks. It being fused with a book for the sake of deception, I could see that being a thing. Obviously they're going to know that it's a normal book, but I still think it's a decoy of some kind. I still think it's a decoy.
I think in the details, we're not even the dust bothers this book of Dryjana. Man, to me, that seems it seems like a pretty important detail to notice.
Or it's a heavy fucking book.
But why would its weight have anything to do with dust not affecting it?
Well, I'm assuming it means the pages, right? It's not settling. I don't know. I
took it as the whole thing was basically impervious to dust, like it just not even unlike the cover.
I don't know. I don't think it's enough evidence to say that it's not fake. I still think that someone could have put a spell on a book and make it impervious to dust. That's not out of the realm of possibilities.
I guess maybe I'd say that too if I was looking at two pies in the face as opposed to one.
No. I think we need some more conclusivity on it.
All right. Well, I will be patient.
Okay. Fuck you.
I think this is just confirmation, though, that Absalar is going to be reborn. I think there's still more to be seen there, but I think it's definitely going to happen. It's just, okay, now she's arrived at the body. Some sort of thing is going to happen, now that she's arrived. I don't know if there's going to be some sort of ritual or something like that, but yeah, I don't think there's any way that's not happening.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I would agree with you on that one. I guess, do we want to wait until we have more conclusivity about Apsalar slash Shaik slash Sorry, or should we
I'm
schedule
fine
this
waiting.
pie in the faces ASAP?
I'm fine waiting.
Okay, all right, sounds
I
good.
think the anticipation will be worse for you than me.
Nah, I'll be all right.
Yeah, it's all in fun. It's nothing that serious. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, absolutely. It'll be fun to get a video of that and post it on the YouTube and the Twitter and
Oh yeah, for sure.
yeah. But yeah, I guess my only other thoughts is like I never would have imagined that Leo Min and the Topal Kai have just been sitting here waiting this whole time. You know?
Yeah, to be honest, I completely forgot about them because we haven't heard from them in such a long time.
I did too. Yeah, it was just so abstract. Abstract. I'm like, why the fuck are these guys still here? You know?
Yeah,
Like, but hopefully we got some new companions for the ones that have fallen.
I mean, but now I'm thinking about it, and they've been there for months. I mean, it must be months because Coltane's been on his march. Duiker was trying to catch him for like what, 3 months?
Right. Yeah, so how are these guys still alive?
Maybe they had some food, but yeah, now they're hunting fucking lizards to try to eat something. They clearly haven't eaten well for a little while.
I know, but what about water? I mean, the body can only go like 7 days without water. Maybe like a week and a half to 2 weeks.
Maybe it's
But
different for Toblakai, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe, I mean, yeah, I don't know. But we did
so
it. We finished the sub book here.
we did finish the sub book. Yes, we did.
So I'm looking forward to getting into the last one here. I think our first chapter, chapter 15, is like 40-ish pages.
About that, yeah.
So we've got what? We've got about another. We've got just under 300 pages left to finish this book.
Do we? Yep.
Just under 300 pages. So it'll probably go fast.
Yeah, it will. Because we're on chapter 15, so we've got 2 wrap-ups, an epilogue, and then 9 more chapters.
Something like that.
Yeah. And I think isn't this our 50th episode? Or is it
No, that'll be the next. The wrap up will be the 50th.
Man, that's crazy. That's crazy. 50 fucking episodes, man.
Yeah.
It's been a journey.
Pretty cool.
I'm wondering, I've been thinking about your Krupp thing now. And I wonder if, because from what I understand, Memories of Ice and Deadhouse Gates pretty much coincide with each other. I wonder if we'll get some things about Krupp in Memories of Ice.
Just to be clear, this was not my Krupp thing. I did not come up with that. It's something I think I saw.
Gotcha.
I'm not going to take credit for it, but I think it's interesting. Yes.
Gotcha.
Well, anything else here to talk about tonight?
No, I've got nothing. I'm all out of gas. I feel satisfied, fulfilled. I really like this chapter. It was really shorter. It was shorter than I am used to. So I guess it was nice to have a quick read,
Yeah.
that I could just in a half hour rock out. So
I'm looking forward to getting to continue to read on now, though.
yeah, I have to edit the next episode so that I can get that out this weekend. I'm about an hour into it, and there's maybe another hour and 45 minutes to edit. So I'm just starting the where I'm talking about the battle at Geller Ridge. So I've got the first 2 sections summarized and our conversations edited. So yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to listening to it when you get it done.
Awesome. Well, I guess enjoy the rest of your night, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good, buddy. Have a good night.
Yes, you too, man.
Bye.
Bye.